increasing number of books were banned during this academic school year. The PEN America Index found about 1,500 books were banned in the first half of the past school year. 30% of titles are related to race, racism, or features of color, and 26% of titles have LGBTQ plus themes or characters.
More than 140 districts across the country banned more than 2,500 books last school year, and Texas banned more than any other state.
It's a trend you've no doubt read about, the growing list of books banned in our nation's classrooms and libraries. Martha Teichner takes us to the front lines of a war on words.
I don't know. Just it suppresses a lot of freedom in the imagination and the mind of a child, creativity. I think they should be able to read whatever they want to read, because that's the way America is.
Look at these books that have already been banned due to Republican measures. The Life of Rosa Parks. This apparently is too woke by the Republican Party. Song of Solomon is unacceptable to Republican politics. 40% of banned books have reported are significantly addressing and specifically addressing LGBT issues. This Republican bill is asking the government to force the outing of LGBT people before they are ready. When we talk about progressive values, I can say what my progressive value is, and that is freedom over fascism.
Owning hundreds of physical books is pointless unless it is your job. Wrong. Look at right now with book banning going on, okay? You are not going to be able to get your hands on certain books. Look at how Kindle has been subtly changing your ability to own the books that you own, right? Making all of these changes with your ebooks. Also, just in terms of editing, we've seen this where publishers have been able to edit an ebook and it changes immediately for everybody who has that ebook, right? That's all well and good if it's like a spelling mistake, but what if people start changing history books? That's already happened, but like, if they just go in and change that. Having a physical copy of something is so important. Now, it might, like, owning the same copy, like a million special editions, you're not gonna save the world with that, I understand, but there is something still very, like, essential and important about physical media and having it, and just so people can't take it away and people can't deny its existence sometime in the future. So I absolutely believe that you should have physical books if you want them. Like, there's nothing wrong or pointless. There's a lot of points to owning physical books. That's why libraries exist.
Mississippi libraries now face uncertain challenges after Donald Trump signed an executive order that halts funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services.
Hi, my name is Leah Pym. I'm the Information Services Librarian here at this library, and I have a banned book club that I've been doing for about a year now. I took it over from someone else originally started the book club, but then they left about a couple months after they started it, so I took it over, and I've really enjoyed doing it. It's brought a very diverse crowd in, and it always generates really good discussions. And what I like about it most is everyone's so open-minded about talking about these different topics that may seem very taboo. Like, we pretty much talked about everything. LGBTQ stuff, race stuff, sexual assault, rape, anything like that. Stuff that's prevalent in many of these books that are banned today. And it's just been really enjoyable to hear people's opinions about it and to see people kind of care so much about what's happening in our country right now with books being banned. I think it's very important to have banned books in our libraries because they represent often marginalized groups or people that aren't really represented as well in books. So I think it's really important that kids or adults have access to that kind of information to see how other people are living. Like we just read Milk and Honey by Ruby Kaur. It's a collection of poetry. It's very popular with some people. And last year, I should say, it was the 2022 through 2023 school year. It was one of the most banned books in public schools. And a big reason for that is because it kind of covers some really heavy topics like sexual assault and things like that. But we were talking about why it's kind of so important to have that, and so has the author herself, because many children do experience that even though we don't like to talk about it. And it's important to know that other people have experienced that and to kind of see that representation. So that's why, I love banned books.
Hey now, hey wow, here's how. Come and read between the lines.
Reading is a very fresh way to learn.
Reading Rainbow wanted children to know there's all kinds of stories out there, and while it may not be stories from your neighborhood, it's stories from a neighborhood you should know about.
Well, you could have your very own library card, and then you could take books home. And you wouldn't have to walk here every day. You could take as many as you like.
That would be wonderful.
So Matilda's strong young mind continued to grow, nurtured by the voices of all those authors who had sent their books out into the world, like ships onto the sea. These books gave Matilda a hopeful and comforting message. You are not alone.
I'm Tracy. I'm Catherine. And we sell books with cultivated lines. We're both educators. I'm out of the classroom now.
I'm in the classroom now. And banned books are needed all the time. All of the books, honestly.
Having access for the reader who doesn't see themselves in their community or in their space cannot be underrated. And not being seen where you are is the loneliest thing in the world, and a book can help make that connection. I've seen it done over and over.
Hey, my name is Amber, and I own a small pop-up bookstore in Colorado Springs called Bandwagon Books. I feature banned and challenged titles, and I donate a percentage of my annual profits to organizations like PEN America and the American Library Association because I believe in the work that they're doing to combat censorship in the U.S. Diverse stories are so important, and everyone deserves to see themselves in books. And a lot of times, proponents of book banning make the argument that they're trying to protect kids. And I can empathize with that, and I certainly think that all parents ought to have the right to determine what their child should and shouldn't read, but I don't think that any parent should be able to dictate which books that other children have access to. Here's my bottom line: books save lives. And I know that might sound like an exaggeration, but I mean it quite literally, and as an independent bookseller, it's something that I hear all the time. And I have a childhood friend who, at a very young age, unfortunately suffered abuse from a family member, and she realized that what she was going through was not normal because of a book that she read. And I wish that I had asked her when we were kids which book that it was, but without that book, who knows how long that abuse would have continued. And another example is a friend of mine in middle school was struggling with coming out to his parents. He was depressed, though I didn't know at the time exactly how depressed he was. And later in high school, he confided with me that he had read the book Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan, and that book saved his life and convinced him that he would be able to be happy one day. And while not every story is for every person, it's so important to protect free access to books, and that's why I'll always fight for intellectual freedom.
I'm Mick Davis. I'm the record store manager at T-Bone's Records and Cafe in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Points to an intolerance for art on the basis of typically obscenity and promoting social mores being either changed or, for some matters, violated. So I think that that's what plays into the modern ban on it. You know, when they brought James Joyce's Ulysses over here in the 1920s and 1930s, it was banned. To Kill a Mockingbird has been banned as well before. And a lot of the book bans that we see today are very specific, and I'm not completely certain that they're given on the basis of someone who has actually read the book, more online to remove the book from a setting that might be harmful to children or young adults that are maybe highly impressionable. It's been my purview that most of the things that are in the library that would be of that nature have been kind of sequestered away into their own section, so they wouldn't be able to fall into little hands, so to speak. As far as the store goes, we don't really go through the banned book items. I mean, because we're in a college town, so we see a large swath of people. But I'm pretty sure that if I saw something that wasn't an adult nature in the hands of a child, I would more than likely take it away just on the basis of, you know, that's not really how it's supposed to be. But in the case of books like Art Spiegelman's Mouse, and we'll say like Toni Morrison's Beloved, you know, those are still sold. And they should be sold because most college-age students should be able to read works like that. And in reading those books, kind of discern what they take from those elements of that book that challenge them, that might in turn challenge sources that are against these books. But, you know, it's always been my personal view that anytime something is banned, that's really a means of attracting attention to it. So if you were to ban all the books that they wanted to, you would be pulling the books off the shelf, but drawing attention to people getting them in other places, namely the internet or any bookstore that was super large or anywhere where someone could kind of get away with looking at what it was. I read many banned books in my life, and I can't say that anything has ever really truly offended me in any of those, but there have definitely been some things that I've read that have challenged what I was thinking about, maybe not making my opinions go that way, but actually in the opposite way. So it's really hard to tell what should or should not be banned until you actually read it. And I think that that might be the bottom line of everything that banned books is about. But honestly, it all boils down to the freedom that someone has to do what they see fit to do with their money and to see that their ideas are within those pages.
yeah, I really enjoy reading. I really enjoy writing as well. And my first book was called The Ghost of Beauvoir, and it takes place on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And the historical backdrop is the Confederate house known as Beauvoir. It sits right on the beach in Biloxi. And so when I first wrote that book, you know, I expected to get a lot of feedback and a lot of criticism, and I definitely did. And so that was very scary. And, you know, just having all these people come up to me telling me, man, you are stupid for writing this book. You are a black guy living in Mississippi. You're talking about the Confederacy and you're wrapping it up in a ghost story. We don't believe in no ghosts, and we don't, you know, we really love our flag down here. And so anyway, the book came out, and just as I expected, it received a lot of criticism and all that good stuff. And so I actually pulled the book off the shelf. No one forced me to, but I was scared, and so I had the book pulled off the shelf. And maybe about 10 years after that, I was reading this article about some of the most controversial books of all time. It had like The Color Purple, Catcher in the Rye, and a couple of other books. All powerful books, you know, very powerful books, but they were deemed controversial by so many other people. And so when I started reading that list of those banned books, I said, wait a minute. You know, my book, The Ghost of Beauvoir, although I was scared of what people said or what people were going to think about it, it had a powerful message. And so I pulled that sucker off the shelf and I put it back on the market. And again, just as expected, people still had something to say. They sought out to get the book banned even back then. And unfortunately, it did get pulled from the shelves again, not because somebody wanted to ban it, but it was more so because when I wanted to do an update to the book, the people at Beauvoir, they said, you can no longer use our name in the book. And so in a way, that was kind of censorship on their part. And so, yeah, that was my first book, The Ghost of Beauvoir, and unfortunately I had to pull it away from the shelf. But after Ghost of Beauvoir, I went on to write 7 more additional novels. Some controversial, some not, but they've all done fairly well. And they all take place in either Mississippi or somewhere around the southeastern United States. And I intentionally set my books mostly in Mississippi so I can kind of show people where Mississippi once was, where it currently is, and where it can go. It's no secret that Mississippi has one of the most unique histories in the entire United States. So it's very important for me to kind of show people where we're at as a state and as a people.
Alright, so hey, my name is Marilyn and I work at a bookstore. It is a corporate bookstore, and we have a section that is dedicated to banned books. And as a voracious reader myself, I have my own collection of all kinds of books, but specifically banned books as well. Recently, I've always had a love for banned books because I'm of the belief that if something is being banned, that there's something in it that is meant to be read, or something that somebody doesn't want you to read, and knowledge is power. Some books that are banned aren't even historical fiction, they're just like fantasies and things like that, but there's things in there about empowerment and encouraging you against corrupt regimes, but also how to notice patterns, which I think is something that is super important for everybody to be knowledgeable about. And the fact that in this current administration, but also historically, think about the Holocaust or any dictatorship ever, the first thing that they attack is the arts, and it's books and it's textbooks. So if you have the ability to find these banned books and read them, I think everybody should do that. For me, that's why I started collecting them. And specifically when this administration, the current one, Trump administration, took power again, that's when I said, okay, we can't hesitate. We need to get as many as possible because we are in unprecedented times. And the very fact that so many of our constitutional rights are being infringed on as we speak, this idea of oh, they won't be able to do that is out of the question. We have no idea what they will and can do. So for me, getting those books and owning that was very important. And I think it's really sad too that banning books and censorship in general is even a thing when we know from just historic practices where that stems from and where that leads. So to know that in our country, it started with a bunch of different things, different organizations for their own reasons, but to know that it's like groups of moms in many towns and cities that are preventing their children from learning the things that they probably learned about in school, just because it contradicts what your held beliefs are now. It's not an opinion piece most of the time. Most of the time it is rooted in something that actually happened. And to know that that's where it stemmed and know where it's getting to now, where it's not just about, hey, this might be inappropriate as far as the content and maybe like there's, you know, sexual things about it that maybe kids shouldn't be reading. But now it's just plain and simply teenagers that are waking up to the realities of their situation and deciding to do something about it. It gets to the point where it's like, why do you want them not to be equipped? Why do you want your kids to not have the tools that you had? And I don't know, to me that's just, it's really, really sad. My family comes from Cuba. So my mom, my dad, that whole side of the family, or that whole, my ancestors, everybody, they come from Cuba, and that is currently a communist dictatorship, and it has been for many years. And when I talk to my parents and my grandparents and they tell me the stories of being under a regime like that, the stories are always the same in the sense that they didn't have access to English media of any kind. Their books were heavily censored. Most books didn't exist unless it was something that was specifically given to you. Your schools were regulated in such a way where you were only learning what they wanted you to learn. The news outlets were only government propaganda news. The cartoons were government propaganda cartoons. It was all of these things, right, where you had no access to the outside world. And you had no access to any books that even told you about even like a fantasy world that could potentially exist. So you had no choice but to accept the circumstances that you were in because you didn't know that there was anything else out there. And I think knowing all of these things, like even if you don't know about the Cuban dictatorship and you don't know about the censorship there, you know about the Holocaust at the very least. You know that they burned books. You know that in all kinds of different totalitarian governments around the world, they have no access to social media and news and books and things like that. If you know these things and you know that that's an example of a government that doesn't work, or people that are oppressed, people that don't have freedoms, to me, it doesn't make sense to call yourself a patriot and then be complicit in an act that's actively taking away your freedom to have access to these things. I understand that there are books out there that suck. I understand that there are books out there that have really questionable content. And maybe there are some books out there that people really shouldn't read. But it's not our place to censor that. It's not our place to take that off of shelves and vilify it, because that is just gonna make it okay to do that for other things. And who is one person to say what is right and what is wrong? You know, we live in a country where there are so many different opinions and so many different belief systems and just personal morality things, and you don't know why somebody might be using that book. So like, the fact that we live in a country where you are free to think and act and do things like that should be the first thing that makes you want to protect the right to have access to every piece of media that's out there and all these books and all of these things. And as soon as someone tries to take that away from you, you should be asking more questions, and you should be even more impassioned and emboldened to find out why and not let it happen. So for me, banning books and censorship is incredibly unconstitutional. It's un-American. It's, to me, inhumane. And art is one of the the most important pillars of our society and our humanity, because it's what has kept us knowledgeable of civilizations from the dawn of time to today. So it should be protected at all costs, and that's my piece.